In this lecture, we're going to learn about the network mode, also referred to as the net mode. Let's begin. So, the network mode describes a computer's relationship to a network multiplayer session. You can take a look at the network mode of a game instance and understand their role in the network multiplayer game. Is it the server, or is it a client, or is this a single player game? That is what the network mode tells you. An instance of a game can take on any of the following network modes: standalone, dedicated server, listen server, or a client. And these values are defined as an enum in the engine source code. So let's go one by one and explain all of these. First, we have the standalone. In this case, the game is running as a server that doesn't accept connections from remote clients. So even though it's a server, because it doesn't accept any connections, it is essentially a single player experience. So all the players participating in the game are local players. So that means that this game can be either a single player game or a local multiplayer game. If you take a look at the illustration here, you have a computer with the game running, and in this case you have multiple players playing the game. So this would be a local multiplayer game, or if you only had one player here, it would be a single player game. So the important part here is that this is happening on a single machine and no outside connections are accepted. Next up, we have the client network mode. In this case, the game is running as a client that is connected to a server in a network multiplayer session. So very simple, we have a server here and we have 4 clients. These are the clients. They are connecting to the server to play the multiplayer game. Next, we have the listen server. So this is one of the 2 types of servers we have. In this case, the game is running as a server that is hosting the network multiplayer session. So the client connects to the multiplayer session, the server hosts the multiplayer session. So as the server, the listen server accepts connections from remote clients, and it also has its own local player playing directly on the server. So because there's someone actually playing on the server, this mode isn't really suitable for competitive games, so it is often used for casual cooperative games. As you can see here, we have the server, this is the listen server, and we have all the clients connected to the listen server. And as you can see, the listen server also has a player on it that is playing the game. So this is going to be the difference between the listen server and the dedicated server. There's someone actually playing on the listen server. Let's talk a little bit more about this listen server. So these are very easy for users to set up, since if you have a copy of the game, you can essentially host a server directly from the game and start playing with your friends, start inviting your friends. Whereas with a dedicated server, you would have to get the dedicated server version of the game and run that on a computer and then connect there. But with the listen server, it's much easier. But because the player who's hosting the game as the listen server is actually playing on the server, they have a massive advantage over other players, the clients that are connecting to the game, because they need a network connection to play the game, but the server doesn't. The server can just make changes and play the game directly, whereas the clients need to make requests to the server to play the game. So these factors make it much less suitable for listen servers for highly competitive games, but like I said, they're more ideal for casual multiplayer games. You don't want to be playing a high-paced FPS game against someone who's playing as the listen server. They're gonna have a massive advantage and you're not gonna have a fun time. And finally, we have the dedicated server. So in this case, the game is running again as a server that is hosting the network multiplayer session, just like the listen server. It accepts connections from remote clients, just like the listen server, but the difference is that it doesn't have any local players. So it discards graphics, sound input, and any other player-oriented features. And this also makes it run way more efficiently compared to a listen server. A dedicated server is much more suitable for competitive games and also for games that require large-scale multiplayer. In this case, the dedicated server is here. As you can see, there is no player playing on the server here. It is just the server. It is simply a command line application essentially. It doesn't have any graphics, sound, nothing. It is simply simulating the authoritative version of the game world and replicating that game world to the clients. So in this case, no client, no player has an advantage over the other because there's no one playing on the server. Okay, finally, let's take a look at this chart. When it comes to these network modes, there are three things that you need to learn really well. The first one, is it playable? Is this game instance playable? The second one, does it have authority? And the last one is, can clients join this game? For a standalone game, it will be playable. It will have authority. Because like I said, it is simply a server which has authority that doesn't accept connections. So clients can't join a standalone game session. A listen server will be playable because there's someone actually playing on the server, the person who is hosting the game. It will have authority because it's the server, and clients will be able to join it because it's a multiplayer game. So it is just like a standalone game, but players, other clients can actually join, making multiplayer possible. The dedicated server is like the listen server, but it is not playable. There's no one playing on the dedicated server. It's purely for simulating the game. It will have authority because just like the listen server, it is the server and clients can join. And finally, we have the client, which is only playable, but it doesn't have any authority. It can't make changes to the game world without, it has to ask the server to make those changes. So it doesn't have authority and clients can't join another client's game. Clients can only join the server. Okay, enough explaining. Let's dive into the engine and explore these network modes. Okay, here we are back in the engine, and now we're going to take a quick look at the different types of network modes we can use to launch the game and test the game here in the editor. So you saw these in a previous video, but you didn't really know what they meant. So if you take a look at this menu here again, the multiplayer options, you saw these, but you didn't really know what they meant. Now you understand these. You know that the play standalone option here will launch the game as a single player game. The listen server will use a listen server, and play as client here will launch a dedicated server and connect the clients to that dedicated server. So let's quickly go through these and test them and see what they look like. So the first one is going to be play standalone. I'm going to leave the number of players at 2 and click on play standalone and play the game. This will launch 2 instances of the game, but because we picked standalone as the network mode, both of these instances are single player essentially. So they don't see each other and no other client can connect to these games. So this is what you normally use in Unreal Engine if you're making a normal single player game. Let's move on and take a look at the second option, which is play as listen server. Let's click on that and run the game with 2 players. You can see that right off the bat, because this is a listen server, we have 2 characters in the game. If you take a look at the toolbar here in this pop-up window, in this window that popped up, you can see that this is the client. So that only means that the other one is the listen server, because we know that the listen server has an actual player playing on the server, unlike a dedicated server. So here we have the server and the client connected to each other, and the listen server has a player playing as well because it is a listen server. I'm going to do a little trick here. I'm going to open up the level blueprint. And when you open up the level blueprint or any other tab here except the main one, and then you run the game, all the instances will be launched as a separate window. So now we can see that this one is the server and this one is the client. Just to show that to you that this is in fact the server. And the more clients we have, if we set the, if we set the number of players to 3, let's say, this will again launch the server and then launch 2 clients instead of just 1. So this is client 1 and this is client 2. And both these clients are connected to the listen server here. And it seems like the character is stuck here in the middle. And don't worry, we're gonna fix that as well in just a moment. Okay, so this is the listen server. Finally, we have the dedicated server option, which is play as client. If you read the tooltip here, it says the editor will act as a client and a server will be started for you behind the scenes to connect to. So because a dedicated server doesn't have any player playing on it, we need to start the dedicated server and then start client instances and connect those client instances to the dedicated server. We can't just, like the listen server, start a server and start playing on it. So with this option, let's pick this and let's set the number of players to 2. Unreal will start a server for us behind the scenes. So if you run the game, you can see that both of these instances are clients. So this is client 1 and this is client 2, and they are connected to the dedicated server, which you can't see because it doesn't have any graphics. So this is how you test with the dedicated server setting. And you can, just like with the listen server, you can also increase the number of players. And now we have 4 clients connected to the game. And this is kind of lagging my machine right now. Okay, so those are the different types of options that you can use, that we can use to test the game in different types of network or single player settings. I'm gonna set this to be a listen server and leave the number of players at 2. The game that we're gonna be making, let's switch to the main tab here to our viewport. The game that we're gonna be making in this course is going to be a 2-player adventure game, and it's going to be a casual game. It's not going to be a competitive game. Because of that, we're going to use a listen server mainly to make this game. One player will host the game and play as the listen server, and the other person will connect as the client. And in the main menu, you're going to have the option to host a game or join a game. So that's why we're going to have the listen server as the main network mode that we're going to use in this game. And of course, this isn't the only place that you can set this network mode. We're going to do this in the code. I'm actually going to show you how to launch a game session as a listen server and then connect to that game session as the client. Okay, so finally, the reason all the characters are spawning here because we have a player start here. We can actually copy this and put another one here, and that way we would have 2 player starts. So now if I run the game with 2 players, one of them is going to start at the original player start and the other is going to start at the new one that we just created. Great. So finally, as a quick challenge, I want you to also create another player start here and play with these multiplayer options here, play with the number of players and also the different net modes, and just get used to playing with these settings. I know it's an easy challenge, but we're still at the beginning of the course and you're learning essential information, and don't worry, you're gonna get much harder challenges as the course progresses. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.